Sometimes questions arise about Jango Fett's true identity. Is he a Mandalorian? For those who believe the statement Olmec gave to Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jango Fett and Boba Fett are not Mandalorians. However, there are stories from the old Legends material that confirm, once upon a time, that Jango Fett was a Mandalorian. Not just any Mandalorian, the Mandalore. The Mandalorian Season 2 seems to have made some of these story elements canon again. The chain code in Boba Fett's armor redeems Jango Fett as a Mandalorian. I've been working on my own version of the Legends stories of Jango Fett open seasons and the Bounty Hunter video game from the 90s. This is part 14 of the story of Jango Fett, today on Star Wars Fanatic. While you're here, go on and hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to see the continuing parts of this story and my other theories and discussions. Also, hit the like button if you like what I do as much as I like making these videos for you. Now, let's get on with the story of Jango Fett. As Protector Olmec leaves his office, there stands Duke Adonai Kryze directly in front of him. Duke Kryze is visibly angry. Olmec, what are you up to? Olmec was taken off guard. This is a most unexpected visit. Did the Duke hear him in his office talking to Tor Vizsla? He decided to fabricate it a little. I was checking the reports on the Fett cargo. I wanted to make sure they had everything they need. Kryze looks Olmec where he knows his eyes should be under his helmet, and gives a scowl. It's Mandalore Fett. Whether we trust him or not, and whether we want it or not, he is the leader of the Mandalorian people. You lie. I've suspected that you've been working with Death Watch for some time. Thank you for confirming it. Duke Kryze then taps his comm link, but before he has a chance to say anything, Olmec lunges at him, covering the pacifist leader's mouth with one hand, and he uses his other hand to force Duke Adonai Kryze into his office. Olmec tells Kryze, "This is ahead of schedule. If you make a sound, I will kill you where you stand, and Fett will never be my Mandalore." Kryze has always been a good negotiator. But it seems this time he will have to play along until someone notices him missing. But that doesn't stop him from provoking Olmec. Olmec, a man without a clan. Kryze felt belittled for believing the stories of how Olmec came to be alone. He then faces the conspiracist. I took you in. I gave you purpose. Olmec entertains the idea of an argument. You've held your spoiled daughters above me since the beginning. Kryze has to mind his words, but he has followed the Rezulnari since he was a young boy. He must defend his actions and his daughters. Olmec, you have proven not to follow the creed, but rather your own ambitions. You are again without a family to protect you. You are Darmanda. Olmec was already angry, but this statement made his blood boil. To cast a Mandalorian of his stature out was an outrage, a betrayal. Again, only thinking of his own self-worth. With one quick motion, he ejects the blade from his gauntlet and plunges it into Duke Kryze's heart. You have turned your back on me, Adonai. You are Darmanda now. Just then, he watched the flicker of life escape the Duke's eyes, and Kryze falls to the floor limp. When the rush and exhilaration wear off, Olmec immediately regrets the action. This was too soon. This wasn't part of the plan. Fett was not yet dealt with, and any assistance is light years from him. He would surely be discovered. He then regains his composure and calls Tor Vizsla one more time on a secured line. Tor answers, Olmec, you call too much. You'll be discovered, you fool. Olmec tries not to let the panic show in his voice. Mandalore Vizsla, we have a problem. Vizsla then notices the man laying on the floor behind Olmec. What have you done? His life was mine to take. You robbed me of my solidarity. Olmec responds, I understand your disappointment, my lord, but I had no choice. He heard our conversation. Tor Vizsla was usually the one to make rash decisions, but this time it had to be handled carefully. Help will be at your door momentarily. I should have you killed, but I need you there. Next time, I will improvise my plans and you will meet the afterlife slowly. Then the hollow projection of the Death Watch leader disappears. As Olmec paced, it seemed to have been an hour passed since he spoke to Vizsla, but in reality it was only about 10 minutes. He kept looking at Kryze's dead body. Occasionally he would kick him to ensure he was really dead. There was no movement. As he paced by the fallen pacifist one more time and gave the dead body a glare, his door alert was pressed. Olmec called out as calmly as he could, "What is it?" The voice on the other side responded, "We have a shipment for Protector Olmec." Olmec hoped this was the help Vizsla had spoken of, but he couldn't be too sure. Deliveries were often showing up at his door by mistake, when they were supposed to go to supply or something like that. He then flicked a switch, turning on his monitor, and there stood two men outside his door with a large hover crate. Olmec opened the door and checked the corridor to make sure it was clear, and ushered the men inside. Meanwhile, Jango's forces dropped out of hyperspace above the planet Galindraan. Everything looked normal from what they could tell. But then again, everything always looked normal from space. There was no sign of a blockade or any fighters for that matter. It was peaceful, quiet. The silence of space never alarmed Jango. At times he liked it, but he was a warrior and he preferred the chaos of a battle. At least he knows the risks. The quiet of space was just unsettling before a battle. He was prepared to fight as soon as they dropped from hyperspace, but it seems he will have to wait. This time, he wasn't going to the surface until scans were done. He needed to know about ship placements and troop sizes. If Tor Vizsla was down below, he would almost immediately know the True Mandalorians' presence. Jango called out over the closed-circuit comms. "Silas, Scarada, and Cartwright, relay to your fighters. Keep a distance. Stay out of scanner range until we have the information we need." Two replies came out calmly in succession. "Yes, sir." And the fighters did just that. There was no need to fly casual other than Hondo's pirate ship's cloaking. There was no way to mask who they are if they were detected. Then Jango got a feeling this was likely another trap. He didn't see how it could be. It was pretty straightforward, but he couldn't shake the feeling. All craft, be aware. This could be another trap like Scorta 6. All men considered this already. Sure, Jango wasn't Jaster Muriel. He learned from the lessons of Corta 6. Mandalore Fett, the scans are complete. There is a small concentration of life forms in Sector Delta, and there are a few unidentified fighters docked closely to them, reported Cartwright. Jango thought, unidentified. Maybe we are too far away to get a good reading, but this had to be their place. All craft fan out and begin a fast descent on Section Delta. We will encircle the area and close in around them. So they began the descent into the atmosphere. Tor Vizsla was waiting. He sat with the governor of Galindraan in a conference room, along with Tor's nephew, Pre Vizsla. Pre was hot-headed and wanted to meet the attackers straight on, but Tor assured him he will get his chance in battle to prove his leadership. Tor then told the governor, "This is what the True Mandalorians do. They attack the defenses, then take control of the government. They have tried the same thing on Concord Dawn and Corta 6. Both times we stopped them." The governor was already in the loop of the Jedi Force waiting on standby, just in case this small band of Deathwatch Mandalorians were unable to fight off Jango and his troops. But he would have to rely on both organizations. His security team was too small and their weapons were outdated. There was no way they could penetrate Beskar, only become a minor inconvenience. Their strongholds were very primitive. He was almost regretting giving Tor Vizsla and his soldiers a sanctuary. This seemed like a bad idea, but Tor did give the governor a direct line to Master Dooku and his Padawan Kamari Valsa, just in case something went wrong. Jango was right about one thing. This wasn't going to be easy to pull off, but it had to work. This war had to end, not only for him, but for the Mandalorian people. He made the fighters stay only far enough apart that they could cover the most ground effectively, but also be close enough to aid those on their flanks if things went south. One of the problems with Corta 6 was that they were spread too thin, among other issues, of course. This time would be different. All would support each other as they drew in closer to the ground. Jango made one final transmission. "Oh yeah, Vode on. Let's hunt, brothers all." A loud echo rang through his comm with the same statement in return. Inside the makeshift bunker, Tor Vizsla could feel the ground rumble and shake. It's time to end this. Death to Jango Fett and the True Mandalorians. He then gripped the darksaber and nodded to his nephew. The True Mandalorian fighters hovered about 3 meters above the ground. There was no sign of the opposing troops. He didn't expect there to be, as they were surely alerted to their presence. He was just hoping they descended quickly enough that Deathwatch didn't have enough time to fortify and prepare. The men used their jetpacks and floated gently to the surface. As each craft emptied their troops, the fighters sprung into action, destroying all the fighters on the ground. Jango said to himself, well, if they didn't know we were here before, they do now. The men were all about earshot from each other. This was still too far away. Jango motioned for them to close in the gaps and proceed forward. Just as he did, the battle erupted. First there was nothing, then it was like the battle had been raging for hours. Every man dodging blaster bolts, dropping, rolling, taking cover, and using jetpacks to avoid the volley coming at them. Overhead, Jango's fighters were making strafe runs into the middle of the circle. With each pass, the blasts would cease, just long enough for Jango and his troops to gain a few more meters at a time. It was enough, and the plan seemed to be working. This was not the mess that began immediately on Cortus 6. This was more organized. Just as Jango and his men closed in to the point victory was imminent, it happened. Silas unmasked one of their dead opponents. This was no one he recognized. Not that it was possible to know every soldier in Deathwatch, but at one time they had all been brothers and sisters. He yelled to Jango, "It's a trap!" Jango nodded. "I know." Hopefully this changed battle plan was enough to thwart the ambush enough that they could still be victorious. It was too late to turn back now. They had to fight this one out. The governor watched as a small survey droid made passes over the battlefield. Tor stood by his side. "Governor, you know what to do. I'm going after the pretender Fett." This was all new to the governor. His planet had not been at a war since the days of the Old Republic. His men weren't adequately trained, and his faith in a victory was waning. He watched the monitor being relayed from the survey droid. He saw as his men fell, one by one, dying in a battle they didn't ask for, fighting for a cause they had no investment in, nor one that they understood. Now it was about survival. As Tor left the room with his nephew in tow, the governor made the call. "Master Dooku, the true Mandalorians are slaughtering my people. Your Mandalorian friends are ineffective and outnumbered. We need your assistance soon, or we won't survive." Jango was feeling confident this battle was going better than anticipated. The opposing ambush was a failure, and Jango had not lost a single soldier nor fighter. The adrenaline flowed through him. He didn't notice the explosions happening all around him, nor the blaster bolts whizzing by. He was focused. Where's Vizsla? Then he spotted him. Vizsla and another were just dots on the horizon. He lowered his rangefinder and zoomed it in as far as it would go. It was definitely Tor Vizsla and his nephew. Silas was close to Jango at this point. He pointed to the two dots. Silas quickly lowered his own rangefinder, and both took off running. Both Jango and Silas seemed to read each other's minds as they fired their jetpacks. The chase was on. Tor didn't seem to notice the two men rapidly approaching. As Pre tried to keep up, he too didn't see them, until it was too late. The sound of their jetpacks seemed to come up from nowhere, and Jango tackled Tor, and both tumbled into the strange brush outlining the edge of the field. Silas did the same to Pre. Jango wanted Tor dead by his hands. A warrior's death by blaster or blade wasn't good enough. This was personal, and Jango wanted to watch Tor die. Silas was there for his Mandalore. There was no way Pre would get a chance to double up on Jango. All four men fought with ferocity. Jango remained mostly quiet, but Tor hurled insults, calling Jango Darmanda repeatedly. But it didn't faze Jango and his resolve. This term was not taken lightly by any Mandalorian, and it only fueled his anger. Tor saw this and changed his strategy. As they were grasped together in a virtual deadlock, Tor tells Jango, "You surprised me, Fett. You changed the strategy well enough." Jango returned, "You're predictable, Vizsla." Then Jango rolled his body into Tor's torso and picked him up off his feet, slamming him to the ground on his back. As Tor's helmet fell from his head and rolled away, Jango looked into Tor's eyes. "You killed my family. You enslaved my sister. You killed my mentor. You killed good Mandalorians. You are the Darmanda." As he was focused on Tor's eyes, he didn't see Tor's hand grabbing a thorn stick over his head. Slowly, Vizsla moved the stick next to his body as Jango repeatedly punched Tor in the face. Jango was focused. This was going to be the end of Tor Vizsla and Deathwatch. Silas Scarrata and Pre Vizsla were nowhere in sight, but Jango was too busy to notice how their fight had gone. Just as Jango was about to deliver his fist into Tor's bloody face one more time, Tor slowly brought the stick up between them and inserted it in Jango's side, missing Jango's armor and penetrating Jango's skin. Jango fell back. Tor then stood above him and smiled, his face bloody. He saw Jango was becoming disoriented, holding his side. Then Tor spoke. This type of plant produces a toxin, native only to Galindraan. You will be dead in a matter of minutes. Darmanda Fett, you will die, just as your parents before you, just as your mentor, Jaster Muriel. Jango felt his head get foggy and his vision begin to blur. This can't be how this ends. Then, in one swift motion that seemed to go much slower than it apparently had, Jango extended the blade from his wrist gauntlet and slashed at Tor's stomach, hitting him between his chest and abdomen armor plates. Tor Vizsla didn't have time to block the attack and even thought Jango had missed, until the blood began soaking in his vest that fastened his armor to him. Then, the blood began to pour from the wound, and Jango could see blood dripping from Tor Vizsla. Just then, Jango lost consciousness and fell onto his back from his sitting position. When he came to, Silas was standing over him. Mandalore Fett, you're lucky to be alive, but the war is over. Jango's sight took a moment to return. The poison, Silas smiled. It's taken care of, you'll recover. As he helped his Mandalore to his feet, Jango could see blood covering the ground where Tor Vizsla once stood. Where's Vizsla? Silas laughed. You got him. I saw from a distance him trying to stumble away. He may have taken 3 steps before his blood attracted dire cats. They finished the job. You're lucky your wound was superficial and there was no blood. Jango didn't care about being lucky. It only mattered that Tor Vizsla was dead, and now the Mandalorian people would know peace. What about his nephew? Silas stopped smiling. He got away before I could finish him. He and 2 females disappeared into the thicket. They won't be back. What both men had not seen was Pre Vizsla carrying the Darksaber away. Tor must have known this wasn't going to end well for him and passed it to his nephew, Pre Vizsla. No matter, the war is over, and Jango had only lost 3 men and 1 fighter. Acceptable losses considering it had the potential to be far worse. The governor was still in the safety of his makeshift bunker. His transmission had gone unnoticed in the aftermath of the battle. Master Dooku, Tor Vizsla and his soldiers are all dead. My security force is decimated, and these other Mandalorians are preparing to take control of my capital. It's only a matter of time before they kill me. They have already began killing innocent civilians. As Jango and Silas gather their men to leave the planet, Jango looks up just as Cartwell's fighter explodes. As the wreckage tumbled to the surface, he saw at least a dozen Jedi starfighters taking out the rest of Skull Squadron. Jango turned to Silas. Where is Hondo? Silas looked stunned. We told him to leave when the battle was over. Jango and his men were now stranded. To be continued. Okay, that's all I have for this installment of my Jango Fett series. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you haven't done so, go on and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all my fanfictions, theories, and discussions. Also, give the video a like to show your love for what I do here, and if you know Dave Filoni, tell him I said hi. Thank you for watching, and remember, this is the way, the only way.